Why did medieval monks come up with the very first clocks? We're about to find out how their inaccurate, clunky design accidentally ruffled a lot of feathers and even jump-started the Industrial Revolution. So, who really invented the mechanical clock? And wait, did the first ones even have hands at all? I always pictured medieval times as a slow, unhurried era, where life just moved at the pace of the sun and seasons. But what if I told you a group of people were absolutely obsessed with time, so much so that they invented one of the most complex machines of their era? Which is crazy, but here we are. You see, before we had mechanical clocks, people relied on sundials, which were totally useless at night or on cloudy days. Then there were water clocks, which froze in winter, evaporated in summer, and needed constant refilling. We're talking seriously inaccurate, highly temperamental ways to mark the passage of time. The problem here is, how could a society without electricity or precision tools build something so revolutionary when not their old ways were just failing? Well, here's the dramatic reason. The first mechanical clocks weren't really for commerce, or even science as we know it today. They were for God. Medieval monasteries lived by canonical hours, set times for prayer throughout the day and night. Imagine hundreds of monks needing to be roused for prayer at exact, consistent intervals, day and night, rain or shine. This was their ultimate why, the desperate need that propelled this incredible invention. So what exactly was so wrong with the old ways of telling time? Let's dive deeper into that, shall we? Yeah, turns out, those ancient water clocks, or clepsydra, were certainly marvels in their own right, but they had some severe limitations in medieval Europe. They'd freeze solid in northern winters, or conversely, evaporate in summer. Their accuracy wildly varied depending on water temperature and pressure. And guess what? They needed someone to constantly refill them. And as for candle clocks, they were highly inaccurate, easily affected by drafts, and their burn rates were far from consistent. Sundials, while poetic, were fundamentally limited to sunny daylight hours, which means that they made them utterly impractical for communities that were slowly but surely moving towards more synchronized, round-the-clock routines. For millennia, people just accepted time as fluid. Compounding the problem was the concept of unequal hours, which means that an hour in the daytime was actually a different length than an hour at night, and both varied dramatically with the seasons. Can you even imagine trying to schedule anything in that system? Because here's the thing, a summer hour could be much longer than a winter hour. It was a natural, human-scaled way to divide the day. But hang on, I thought that you'd create a consistent, artificial beat, a standardized rhythm, but none of your tools are made of what feels like Stone Age iron. It feels like trying to work around a really difficult problem. Now, I'm just going to ask you to forget everything you think you know about clocks. Seriously, put aside your smartwatch, your wall clock, even your grandfather's heirloom. The first mechanical clocks didn't have hands or even a face. Imagine a colossal, clunky iron contraption, likely built into a tower. It was heavy, rough, and completely devoid of the delicate precision we associate with clocks today. It was purely auditory. Its sole purpose was to hit a giant bell, loudly, for everyone to hear. No looking at a dial, just listening. So, how would they tell time? Well, they didn't, actually. They struck it. Their primary function was to strike bells to announce the hours for monastic communities and, increasingly, public town life. They would just announce the time. Imagine living in a medieval town and hearing a deafening, booming echo across the fields. That was your time anchor! It wasn't a silent tick-tock. It was a public performance, a communal declaration of the hour that dramatically changed how towns functioned, setting market opening and closing, and regulating daily activities. All right, so with all this revolutionary change, who was the genius behind the first mechanical clock? A really common misconception is that unlike many great inventions, there's no single eureka moment or a famous inventor for the first mechanical clock. No Da Vinci, no Edison, not even a well-known name from the monasteries. The mechanical clock was born from a slow, collective evolution across different workshops and minds in late 13th century Europe. It's humbling to think about, really. It wasn't about personal fame. It was about serving a need, often for a higher power. This invention is a testament to monastic ingenuity. Scientifically speaking, monasteries were not just places of prayer. They were centers of learning, innovation, and practical craftsmanship. They had the resources, the motivation driven by the precise canonical hours, and crucially, an army of skilled craftspeople. This communal, purpose-driven innovation contrasts sharply with our modern concept of individual, patent-seeking inventors. So, we're talking about a true collective effort here. So how did this anonymous genius, or rather, this anonymous collective of bright minds, manage to make a machine tell time? At its heart, the first clock was remarkably simple in concept. A heavy weight, falling slowly, provided the power. This is like a really slow, controlled roller coaster. Gravity pulls the car down, but something has to stop it from just crashing immediately. In these clocks, the falling weight unwound a rope, which in turn rotated a drum connected to a series of gears. But here's the breakthrough, the truly revolutionary part. The verge and foliate escapement. This crazy name piece of metal was the clock's brain. It didn't just let the gears spin freely, it escaped their movement, tooth by tooth, in rhythmic, controlled bursts. Imagine a child on a playground swing. If you just give one big push, they go once. But the escapement was like a tiny rhythmic hand, pushing the swing precisely to keep it going at a steady, regulated pace. The foliote itself was a horizontal bar with adjustable weights at its ends, rocking back and forth like a tiny medieval metronome. It's basically like this oscillating foliote, connected to the verge, intermittently locked and released the gear train. This seemingly crude mechanism, though wildly inaccurate by today's standards, was the first ever way to translate the continuous, relentless force of gravity into regular, oscillating motion, creating an artificial, consistent beat. But here's the rub. Despite their revolutionary nature, these first clocks were incredibly bad at telling time. We're talking errors of 15 to 30 minutes a day, sometimes even hours. Can you imagine your phone being off by an hour every single day? You'd probably throw it across the room and demand a refund, right? But these medieval folks just accepted it, often needing to manually adjust their giant clocks using a sundial as reference on a sunny day. The key flaw was that Achilles' heel, the verge and foliate escapement, was not Acronis. What's an Acronis escapement, you ask? Well, think back to that playground swing. If you give a small push, it swings slowly. A big push, it goes faster. The foliate was like that. Its period of oscillation changed with its amplitude, which means that even tiny variations in power from the falling weight or friction in the massive iron gears caused huge errors. The rhythm simply wasn't consistent. Adding to the woes was the physical construction. These were giant, clunky iron contraptions crafted by blacksmiths, not miniature watchmakers. The immense size and rough medieval metallurgy meant huge friction, wear, and imprecise components, contributing to massive inaccuracy. Trying to achieve precision with these early clocks was like trying to perform brain surgery with a sledgehammer. Yet despite their flaws, these clunky giants started to change everything, laying groundwork for phenomena far beyond just telling the time. So this is actually how these clocks accidentally laid the groundwork for everything, including our modern world. Here's one of the most unexpected consequences. By imposing a rigid, artificial rhythm on daily life, they unwittingly planted the seeds for the Industrial Revolution. Think about it. Standardized time allowed for factory shifts, scheduled meetings, and ultimately, efficient management of labor that just wasn't possible when time was fluid. Before clocks, societies often operated on task time. You worked until the task was done. Clocks introduced clock time. You worked for hours, regardless of the task. The mechanical clock also subtly, yet profoundly, transformed our very conception of time itself. It went from a natural phenomenon, flowing like a river, to a measurable, valuable commodity. Suddenly, time could be managed, saved, spent, even wasted. This had profound economic and cultural impacts, giving birth to the time is money mindset long before capitalism was fully formed. Which means that this abstraction of time allowed for complex social coordination and eventually global trade. While the accuracy was still a bit whimsical, the first public clocks brought unprecedented synchronization to towns. Market days, church services, public declarations, and now tied to a common, if slightly wonky, beat. While these early clockmakers wrestled with iron and rudimentary physics, they weren't far from another massive leap. Every invention is built on the failures and lessons of what came before. The clunky mechanical clock paved the way for more sophisticated designs, like Giovanni da Dondi's astronomical clocks, eventually leading to the groundbreaking invention of the pendulum clock. that's a story for another time. But trust me, it completely revolutionized accuracy and dramatically shaped the world we live in today. I also didn't realize that the simple act of checking your watch today is a direct inheritance from medieval monks trying to pray on time, or from angry townspeople resisting forced schedules. If exploring these hidden connections and unexpected turns in history challenges your perspective, then I invite you to join the community.